Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. When Marcus Aurelius wrote those words in his private journal, he wasn't just reflecting on the nature of the cosmos. He was warning us about the fundamental challenge of human communication. In modern relationships, one of the most common pitfalls is the tendency to take every spoken word at face value. We hear a sentence, assume it means exactly what it sounds like, and immediately construct our decisions, expectations, and emotional states around that assumption. More often than not, this is precisely where confusion, silent frustration, and resentment begin to grow. This is not because people are inherently dishonest, nor is it about placing blame. Rather, it is a reflection of a deeper psychological truth. Human beings communicate through different lenses, especially when emotions, past experiences, and self-preservation are involved. While one person might speak from a place of cold, literal logic, another might speak entirely from a temporary emotional state or a protective psychological boundary. To navigate this landscape with calm, unwavering clarity, we must look to the core principles of Stoicism. The Stoics taught us to see things exactly as they are, stripped of projection, hope, or fear. Today, we will examine 7 common statements that many men take literally, but which carry a vastly different psychological reality. By understanding the deeper mechanics of these phrases, you will transition from a state of constant reaction to one of profound observation. Consider the first statement that frequently surfaces in the early stages of connection. I have trust issues. When you hear these words, they often sound like a moment of rare vulnerability. It feels like an invitation to step closer, to understand her history, and perhaps to offer comfort. But this is where many men make an immediate, unconscious mistake. They step into the role of the protector and the healer. They hear those 4 words and think, I will be the one who is different. I will show her that consistency and patience can cure her doubts. They begin to tolerate irregular behavior, step on their own boundaries, and overextend themselves to prove their worthiness. If we look through a psychological and Stoic lens, however, we see a different picture. Trust issues are not a puzzle for you to solve, nor are they a challenge to prove your character. They are historical baggage, wounds created by past choices, betrayals, or unhealed experiences that existed long before you arrived. Epictetus famously taught that we must distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. Another person's internal healing is entirely outside of your control. When someone tells you they have trust issues, they are providing you with valuable data about their current emotional capacity. They are letting you know that their perception of you will often be filtered through the actions of people who came before you. The healthiest response is not to become a therapist or an emotional savior, but to observe. Is this person actively taking responsibility for their own healing, or are they holding up their wounds as an excuse to keep you at a distance? Understanding someone's pain is empathy. Believing you can cure it is an illusion that will cost you your peace of mind. As we move further, we encounter a phrase that has become highly prominent in modern dating. I am dating with intentions. On the surface, this sounds like the ultimate marker of maturity. It signals that someone is no longer interested in superficial games, that they value their time, and that they are looking for a meaningful, long-term alignment. It is exactly what a mature, structured man hopes to hear. But a Stoic mind does not celebrate a declaration before observing the daily reality that supports it. Think about this. Anyone can say they have high intentions. The words cost nothing. To understand the psychological reality, you must look at the timing and the trajectory. Has this person always carried themselves with high standards? Or has this sudden desire for intention only appeared after years of chaotic choices, repeated instability, or avoiding commitment? People do grow and change, and that growth is admirable. But true growth is not a sudden announcement. It is a slow, disciplined build. Psychologists note that when someone loudly proclaims their intentions, they are sometimes trying to convince themselves as much as they are trying to convince you. They may want the security of a stable partnership, but they may not have developed the daily habits, self-discipline, or emotional maturity required to maintain it. When you hear this statement, do not let your enthusiasm blind your judgment. Do not judge a person's readiness by their stated goals. Judge it by the quiet patterns of their daily life. Words represent a hope for the future. Daily behavior represents the reality of the present. This brings us to a statement that is often spoken with complete sincerity, yet rarely matches the complex reality of attraction. Looks don't matter to me. It is a comforting idea. It suggests a deep, spiritual perspective on human connection, one that values intellect, character, and virtue over physical form. And indeed, the ancient Stoics prioritized the beauty of the soul above all else. But the Stoics were also radical realists. They never denied the physical laws of nature. Attraction is not a conscious decision. It is an instinctual, evolutionary response. When someone says physical appearance does not matter, the psychological reality is usually more nuanced. What they often mean is that looks alone are not sufficient to maintain attraction. A man can possess symmetrical features and a strong build, but if he lacks direction, displays a weak character, or lacks self-respect, the initial attraction will disintegrate rapidly. Conversely, a man who presents himself with order, takes care of his health, and moves through the world with a calm, disciplined posture becomes far more compelling than a man who relies solely on his genetics. But here is the danger. Some men hear looks don't matter and take it as a license to neglect themselves. They stop exercising, ignore their presentation, and let their discipline slip, believing their internal qualities will carry the weight. This is a profound misunderstanding. Your physical presentation is the external reflection of your internal order. How you care for your body, your clothing, and your environment is a message to the world about how much you respect yourself. The smartest men never obsess over their physical appearance, but they never neglect it either. They recognize that attraction is a complete ecosystem, where the physical and the psychological are deeply intertwined. Have you ever caught yourself adjusting your life, your standards, or your goals based on a single conversation, only to find the ground shifting beneath your feet later? If you have, you are not alone. It is a natural human tendency to seek comfort in spoken agreements. But true stability comes from a deeper place. If you have made it this far, you are beginning to see human dynamics not as we wish them to be, but as they actually are. This is where the path of self-improvement truly begins. What comes next is the part that almost everyone gets wrong. Let us examine the fourth statement. Money doesn't matter, I only care about connection. This statement contains a mixture of idealistic truth and practical exaggeration. In a world obsessed with luxury and status, hearing someone say they do not care about financial wealth is refreshing. It makes a relationship feel pure. And it is true that most emotionally healthy people do not require extreme wealth, luxury vehicles, or constant indulgence to feel satisfied. But to assume that financial stability plays no role in attraction or security is a critical error in judgment. When someone says money doesn't matter, the deeper psychological translation is that they are not looking for a transaction, but they are absolutely looking for stability. They are looking for a partner who is self-reliant, responsible, and capable of navigating the material demands of life. Seneca, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers, was incredibly wealthy, yet he practiced poverty regularly to ensure he was never a slave to his fortunes. He understood that while wealth should not rule your soul, resources provide order, reduce unnecessary suffering, and allow a person to fulfill their duties to their family and community. A man who has no professional drive, no financial discipline, and no plan for the future will eventually create immense emotional and practical stress in a relationship. The attraction will slowly erode under the weight of financial instability, regardless of how many times they said money doesn't matter. Do not fall into the trap of believing that your financial irresponsibility will be forgiven in the name of romance. Equally, do not believe that wealth can replace character. True security is built when two self-disciplined, responsible individuals come together to build a life of order, where material stability is treated not as a tool for vanity, but as a foundation for peace. Now, let us look at a phrase that often arises in specific circumstances, particularly when dating someone with children. I am not looking for a father for my kids. When a man hears this, he often feels a sudden wave of relief. He thinks, excellent, there are no immediate expectations, no heavy responsibilities being placed on me, and I can simply enjoy the connection without pressure. But this is where we must apply the Stoic practice of looking ahead and anticipating the natural progression of things. Relationships do not exist in a vacuum. They are organic and they naturally grow. If you build a genuine, deep connection with a woman who has children, your lives will inevitably merge. Over time, you will be present in her home. Her children will observe your actions, your temper, your discipline, and how you treat their mother. You will naturally become an influential figure in their environment, whether you carry the formal title of a father or not. The statement, "I am not looking for a father," is often a protective shield used to prevent early pressure or to guard against the disappointment of a temporary partner leaving the children's lives. It is an honest expression of self-preservation in the present moment. But a wise man does not make long-term decisions based on short-term shields. He asks himself, if this relationship succeeds and grows over the next year or two, am I truly prepared to be a stable, honorable presence in this household? Am I capable of handling the quiet responsibility that comes with this territory? To step into such a dynamic while assuming you will always remain a detached bystander is a failure of foresight. You must base your choices on the natural destination of the path you are walking, not just the starting point. Consider the sixth statement, one that has caused endless frustration and wasted years for countless men. I am not ready for a relationship right now. This is perhaps the most heavily analyzed phrase in modern communication. When a man is emotionally invested, his mind will often perform complex mental gymnastics to avoid the painful truth. He hears "I am not ready right now," and his brain highlights the words "right now." He views it as a temporary obstacle, a challenge of timing. He thinks, if I show more patience, if I stay nearby as a supportive friend, if I continue to prove my value, she will eventually heal or clear her schedule, and then she will be ready for me. This is a devastating illusion. In the vast majority of cases, when someone says they are not ready for a relationship, there is a silent, unspoken ending to that sentence. They are not ready for a relationship with you. This is a difficult truth to swallow, but swallowing truth is the very foundation of Stoic discipline. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to accept the nature of reality immediately, without protest. If someone tells you they are not ready, and yet their actions show they still want your attention, your emotional support, and your time without offering commitment. They are simply enjoying the benefits of a relationship without the responsibility of maintaining one. If they meet someone else shortly after and jump immediately into a committed partnership, they did not suddenly become ready. The alignment was simply different. When someone tells you they are not ready, do not argue, do not wait, and do not try to negotiate their feelings. Wish them well, accept their words as a definitive boundary, and turn your attention back to your own life, your own goals, and your own progress. The moment you begin waiting for someone to change their mind is the moment you hand over the keys to your personal freedom. We have arrived at the seventh and final statement. This is the ultimate psychological trap, the one we promised to address at the beginning. It is spoken in moments of deep emotional intensity, perhaps when the connection feels entirely unbreakable. You are the only one who truly understands me. You are the only man I will ever want. To a man's ears, this is the ultimate validation. It feeds the ego, calms all anxieties, and creates a sense of absolute permanence. It makes you feel as though you have scaled the mountain and secured a lifetime guarantee. Under the influence of this statement, many men let their guard down. They stop striving, they stop maintaining their personal standards, they become complacent, and they begin to take the relationship entirely for granted. But the Stoics warn us constantly about the transient, ever-changing nature of human emotions. A person can say you are the only one and mean it with every fiber of their being in that exact second. Emotions are highly powerful, and in a state of high connection, the future feels completely certain. But emotions are also like weather patterns. They shift, they fade, and they are influenced by 1,000 external and internal variables. If respect is lost, if discipline crumbles, or if the daily reality of the relationship becomes chaotic, those intense feelings of unique connection will evaporate. The psychological reality of this statement is not a permanent contract. It is a reflection of a current emotional peak. A wise, self-governing man enjoys these expressions of affection, but he never builds his entire security on them. He knows that his worth is not determined by verbal validation, and he understands that the only way to maintain respect and attraction over the long term is through continuous, daily effort, self-respect, and emotional stability. Do not let sweet words lull you into a state of weakness. Remain grounded, remain disciplined, and let your confidence rest on your own character, not on the shifting tides of someone else's emotional state. Ultimately, looking at these statements is not about developing a cold, cynical view of women or human connection. It is quite the opposite. True connection can only exist when it is built on reality, not on illusions. When you stop reacting to every fleeting word and begin observing the larger patterns of behavior, you free yourself from unnecessary anxiety. You develop a calm, steady presence that is highly attractive and deeply respected. Think about the ancient Stoic concept of amor fati, loving your fate, accepting reality exactly as it unfolds. When you interact with others, listen to their words with respect and empathy, but always let their consistent actions be the final authority. Time is the ultimate truth teller. It reveals intentions, character, and compatibility far better than any passionate speech ever could. Ask yourself this. How many times have you allowed yourself to be swayed by words, only to realize later that the patterns were telling a completely different story? What did that experience teach you about your own boundaries and your own self-respect? Consider sharing your reflections in the comments below. Your perspective might be the very insight another person needs to hear today to gain clarity in their own life. If this discussion helped you see things more clearly, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications. We will continue to explore the depths of human behavior, Stoic philosophy, and emotional strength. Thank you for your time. Stay disciplined and remain steady in your purpose.